Hey there, folks. Welcome to the edition of Stranger in a Southern Land. I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning. Today on the program, I speak with Caroline Renfro, producer, actor, host for hire, MC, video personality, head of her own production company, just Jill of all trades, if you will. And I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this conversation, and it was just full of a frenetic energy, kind of. Mostly because she came over to the home studio. I opened the door for her. We said her hellos. I show her, like, hey, here's the home studio. Go ahead and take a seat. I hit record. We start rolling. We start jumping in the conversation. I don't even introduce her. Don't even say hello, barely on camera. We just go right into a conversation, and we don't stop until we hit the hour mark. And we talk about all kinds of things. We talk about what it's like to be a person that wears many hats and traveling, and how do we find that free time and get to do the things we want to do. Just fantastic stories, all kinds of stuff. So anybody that does a lot of things in their life, I think you can pull something away. Hopefully from our conversation, hopefully you can pull something away like, yeah, I need to start looking at life like that, or I need to start doing that. Or if you're not doing a bunch of things, you're like, there's lots of things I want to do, but I don't know if I have time. Hopefully this inspires you to do so, because Caroline's doing life to the fullest, and she's getting to do the things that she wants to do on her own terms. And when it comes to talking about success, which is something that's a theme of this podcast, she feels like she is a success. So it's always nice when I get to meet those people and they have a clear idea of what success is, and they define themselves as that. So very excited to bring this podcast to you guys today. Also very excited to let you know that I am on the Shining Wizards Podcast Network, and I'm very thankful for them to be a part of the Cool Kids Table, as I always say, making the Cool Kids Table a little bit larger. So make sure you support them at shiningwizardsnetwork.com. Also, too, make sure you support my producer, Don, at dsct.tv, and all the other podcasts that he has on his network, especially the other podcast that I have with him, How Did This Get Booked, which is co-hosted with me and Zane Riley. Also, too, folks, when we're speaking about wrestling, I got some wrestling dates, I have some comedy dates, and I want you guys to show up to these shows. There's plenty of opportunities to see some local comedy, some local wrestling. It's right there at your fingertips, and hopefully I'm the thing you want to see, Adam. I'm pretty sure you will if you listen to this podcast. Hopefully you understand my sensibilities. But hopefully you've downloaded this podcast in a timely fashion, because tonight, the day that this podcast drops, I will be emceeing for Pete Davidson at the Comedy Zone here in Charlotte. I'm very excited about this. It's going to be a big opportunity for me, so please, hopefully you're sitting in the crowd right now and this podcast is downloading to your phone, or you downloaded it earlier in the day and you already get your tickets. But if you don't already have your tickets for Pete Davidson on Monday, June the 13th, just log on to cltcomedyzone.com. And then also, too, this week I'll be doing some more comedy. I'll be doing it at the Laughing Skull Lounge in Atlanta. I'm going back down there again. I'm very excited for that. And I'll be going down this Wednesday, June 15th. Also, too, I want to let you know about some wrestling that's coming up in my life, most specifically Saturday, June the 25th, NAWA in Sugar Grove, North Carolina. Also, too, got some more comedy to let you know about, especially in the Charlotte area. I'll be emceeing at Bonkers on July 1st and 2nd, which is a Friday and a Saturday, and that will be at the Charlotte Hilton in the Executive Park. For more information about that show, make sure you log on to bonkerscomedyproductions.com. So all kinds of great comedy, plenty of opportunities to see me perform comedy in this June. I'm sure I'm going to have some more wrestling dates coming up, but sometimes that comes up last minute. But I always try to let you guys know if I got something last minute coming up, maybe comedy or wrestling. And the way that you can find out about those last minute bookings is by following me on social media. And that is very easy to do because I am very available on Twitter at ManScoutManning and on Instagram at ManScout Manning. If you have a question about this podcast, or if you want to become a sponsor of this podcast, make sure you email me at jake@sslshow.com, or if you want to book me for an upcoming wrestling event, make sure you email me at manscoutmanning@yahoo.com. Anyways, without further ado, let's jump into this wonderful, frenetic conversation with the wonderful, the talented, the Jill of all trades, Caroline Renfro. Here, but Stranger in a Southern Land. All I got was a description from Candace And that's pretty much the research I've done.
Okay.
Other than click on a few links, that's about all I know.
All right.
So we're gonna discover all that throughout this conversation, and basically, because Candace is I refer to her as my non-official talent coordinator.
All right.
She's lined me up with. She's
good for that. Yeah.
She's fantastic. She knows clever and interesting people all over the place.
Yes, she does.
The description that I got on you is starting your own production company, host for hire, and actor. So let's dissect a lot of this from the beginning here. So let's talk about like actor, obviously production and stuff like that. What was your interest in getting into all of that? Like why am I not sitting down talking to a banker?
Well, it probably could have gone either way because my father is an economist and my mom is a writer. So I had definitely the arts side of it. But my dad, despite being an economist and being very intellectual, is very much a performer and an entertainer. So I think I definitely got the entertainer gene from both sides of the family. And just from the time I was a kid, every summer when the Disney blockbuster, the new animated film would come out, every summer I would get the soundtrack and we would produce it in my backyard and I would direct and I would star and my sister would be the villain, of course.
Of course, so listen, if you want to control casting, you got to do that.
Exactly. So just since I was a kid, I've loved to perform.
Okay. Well, how does that progress through life? Like, see, I'm a professional wrestler, and I had no clue how to get into it.
Right.
And the idea, it's always funny when you talk to people that have these big dreams of production and stuff like that. What are the thought processes and how I get there? My idea was like, I saw The Rock. Sit down with Jim Ross. So basically how you do it is you play football at the University of Miami. Jim Ross watched you do the bench press a couple of times. You arm drag a couple of people, and then you're a pro wrestler. Apparently that's not how it goes.
Who knew?
So now the thing, you've got this desire for production, acting, and all these things. As a kid, what was your thought process on how I chased that dream?
I actually had no intention of pursuing the acting thing as
because
a career.
It was too big?
It just didn't seem realistic to me as a kid. That's the economist father in me talking. It was I need a real job to support myself, and I'll always be able to do this as a hobby. It was kind of my way of thinking, and it's still my way of thinking. It's something that I will always be a part of my life, no matter what direction my life takes as a hobby, because it's something that I love. But just coming out of high school, I went to college for criminology. I thought that I would go into law enforcement somehow. And
then college happened.
And then college happened, and I decided that I didn't like being at school. I love learning, but I really resented being told you need to learn this, and this, and pay for it before you can learn what you want to learn. And so I just said, nah, I'm not doing it. That's not for me. I did come back and take a couple classes at CPCC, which I loved, but knew even then that I wasn't going to be able to get a degree because I wasn't taking the things that I had to take in order to get a degree. So it kind of came to a point where I was like, okay, I just have to get a job. And because of my childhood experience in theater in Charlotte, the first job that I got was with children's theater as an actor. So despite thinking that I would never do that for a living, my very first job out of school was doing that for a living.
Is it acting for a living?
So what we did a program called
me,
Drama for Healthy Living.
Okay.
So we would go into the high schools, and I was young at this point. I was 20, 21. And we would dress as high school students and go in, and the kids didn't know that we were coming. The teachers knew that we were coming, but we would go in and we would
21 Jump Street type?
kind of, yeah. I mean, we were undercover as students, and we would go in and we would have this huge fight, and my boyfriend, the actor playing my boyfriend, would just beat the crap out of me in front of all these kids. And then we would break character and we would introduce ourselves and say, hey, we're here from Children's Theater. And we would do a 90-minute workshop on healthy relationships and dating violence and domestic violence and stuff like that. And it was one of the most rewarding, awesome jobs that I ever had because it let me do the acting part. I got to work with kids, and I also every day felt like, today I made a difference in somebody's life. So it was a really cool job.
By taking a few bumps?
Yeah, it was all stage combat. There were I can't really say there were no real injuries because there were a few real injuries, but they were all accidental, and they come with the territory of your choreography, but you don't know your environment until you get into it. And so sometimes we didn't have the distance we needed to execute certain things, and I got I got slapped across the face really good once. I split my hand open on an overhead projector. Who knew those were dangerous? But it was a great job. Absolutely loved it.
Like what are the usually fights entail? Like, okay, I'm gonna get like this, or how did it escalate to like a realistic
Violence.
fight? Like, how does it not look like those videos that I see on World Star of kids like pretending to be pro wrestlers?
Well, it might have. Okay. It's scripted, so we rehearse it for several weeks prior to going into the schools, and it's basically a fairly stereotypical dating violence scenario where we're talking about, you weren't at the locker when you said you were going to be there, and I saw you talking to somebody in the library, and I don't like what you're wearing today, and it was all of these little emotionally abusive digs that escalated into finally physical violence. So, and the physical violence wasn't anything major. He pushed me, pulled my hair, and then at the very end there was a slap that kind of really got everybody's attention. Even if the kids had started to tune it out, that was the moment that they all came right back, because it was just like, oh, so.
Yeah, that's an interesting social experiment too, because it's almost a situation like is everybody around going to react to
Exactly.
that?
It was always fascinating to see how people reacted, because every once in a while you'd have someone try and intervene. The teachers know what's happening, and so a lot of these kids look to their teacher. Can I get up? Do I intervene? He's not doing anything. She's not doing anything. So maybe I shouldn't. And I think that gives a lot of them the cue not to. But every once in a while we would have a kid try and intervene. We had lots of kids cheered on, especially male. Mm-hmm. But then very rarely, once it was over, did they continue to have that kind of attitude. Like, as soon as we started talking to them, we were able to capture them in a way that maybe we hadn't been able to do with the scene. I think a lot of them know it's fake. So.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That didn't happen in my high school.
No, yeah. Unfortunately, it does not happen in the high schools here anymore either.
I could see why they might want to stop doing that.
Funding.
Right.
It was all funding.
Oh, it's funding. Okay.
Yeah, it's terrible because it was such a great program.
Obviously.
I felt like we really were able to reach these kids in a way that their teachers can't, because we weren't there. We were 20 years old. We were closer to their peers than their teachers. So.
Okay, well, that's an interesting first job.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was great. I loved it.
What was about that you loved? Was it the fact that you had everybody's attention, or let's dissect. What was the thing that you really enjoyed about it?
For that, it was getting to do. I love stage combat. I'm sure you can understand the thrill of getting to precisely execute something that looks, chaotic, but is really well choreographed. Mm-hmm. That was exciting. Getting to work as a 20-year-old who had very recently come out of school thinking, because I went to a performing arts school in high school and changed thinking that, this is not a career that's worth pursuing. Coming back to that and being able to do it for a living was just absolutely thrilling, And then the same token, I had worked a lot with domestic violence and dating violence in high school. As a kid, one of my first theater gigs, we did a touring show around all the high schools in Charlotte. And so being able to work in that vein, that was something that meant a lot to me, to get to do something that I felt was contributing to my community, doing good, but then also filled all of my happy places in terms of things that I want to get paid to do. So,
yeah. When you say you perform in art school and stuff like that, what were some lessons that you learned there that really apply to what you do, or even in life in a sense,
it was high school, so I feel like
you're just trying to make it great and get it done and get it over with.
You're just trying to survive on a daily basis, and I think it helped to a certain extent. Being a theater kid, you're the weird kid. So being at a performing arts school, we were all the weird kids.
Yeah, my girlfriend went to performing arts school.
So you don't stand out quite as much. And then I transferred to a school where it was predominantly African American, and so I was one of 37 white kids in my class. And so because we all had grown up together, we all kind of were already friends, and then got to have this expansive experience of having they were not only African Americans, we had a pretty good Hispanic population as well, and I was in a Hispanic immersion class. And so for me, the performing arts school wasn't as shaping for my career as it was for my personal development. I was 14.
It was school. I'm just
And
trying to get a
hated
grade.
everyone and everything. And
I just want to get out of here. I just want to get my B plus and just end it. And just
Yeah.
I just
want to, be done.
be done. So you're out there acting. You're scaring the crap out of high school kids.
Yeah.
Like what's the
Love making people jump.
but young, is there like a thought process of a career path, or where do I go, or how can I do this? I'm making money at it, but like as far as like a career or where I'm at, like what's 20-year-old Caroline thinking?
I'll be honest, even now, I don't know that I know what my career arc looks like. It's one of those things where I know that in this industry, opportunities are rare and you take them when you get them. And so I kind of have opened myself to, whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to make the best of it. And even then, I don't think I saw theater as a real career opportunity. And I would say that now, living in Charlotte, North Carolina, it still isn't really a career opportunity. That's not something, there aren't enough paying gigs in theater in Charlotte to really sustain actors. But it's something that I knew that I wanted to do, and I knew that whatever opportunities came that were even anywhere in the realm of it, I was going to take them. Mm-hmm. So.
What were some of the opportunities you took, like being here in Charlotte?
Well, the first one that I took was while I was working at Children's Theater. I was also doing some emceeing for a radio station, Radio Disney, here in Charlotte, and was just kind of doing like weekend gigs as the on-site personality hosting the events for kids. And then my boss, who had hired me, left the station, and they needed to hire someone as the promotions manager. It's a full-time job. I'm like 23 years old at the time. And I was like, yeah, I guess I'll apply. Sure, why not? Ended up getting the job and working there for 4 years, which led to things like working with the NBA. The Bobcats ended up hiring me as an in-house personality, and then also led to doing car commercials, which is currently how I make my living. Also not something I knew was a thing. I mean, you see the car commercials where there's a guy yelling at the TV and there's a blonde standing next to him.
And a dog sitting on the hood of a car.
Half the time, yeah.
And then his daughter, who slowly gets older and older every year, and you feel older and older every year as you see this young girl grow before your eyes.
So I didn't even know that was a thing that people who weren't working for the dealership or owning the dealerships or whatever would do. I had no idea that actors would come in and do that, and I have now been doing it for 8 years. So
yeah, so it's one of those things, like you get those little pockets. You just brought up a couple of things that we'll explore here, like just the idea of like an on-air personality that just pops up. Like that's kind of why I started doing this, is so because I'll do a big flowery intro. I didn't even introduce like that. I'm sitting down with Caroline Renfro. We just jumped in. I do a big flowery intro, but the idea of making a video is I look directly at a camera. Right. And I read off like a script right off the top of my head. I have to read off my dates, introduce the guest, and get through everything as clearly as possible. Right. And it's basically to build up practice for those type of jobs that you're talking about. Because it is a particular skill that you have to work at constantly. And some people naturally have it, and some people naturally don't. And
sometimes naturally having that skill can help you get into the door, but once you're in the door, you still have to work. Even if you have a resume full, you always have to be working at those skills to broaden them, because they're changing every day. The medium changes so quickly these days with technology that you have to keep up. I mean, that's part of your job, is to keep up as a performer.
Absolutely. And were you a natural at it, or did you have to like work at particular things? Like I have a big problem of saying anyways like a million times. Yeah. Is there anything that you particularly had to work on with like how you present yourself in front of a camera?
I think growing up, I had a really, really, really Southern accent when I was a kid. Like hysterically Southern accent. And so I guess growing up, I did theater from the time I was a kid. I guess at somewhere along the way that got beaten out of me. So I know I had to adapt that. I would say, with everything that I've done, I haven't been trained for, I would say. It's all been something that has just landed in my lap, and I've had to learn on the fly. And I think the skill that I have that has helped me the most is mimicry. I mean, I watch the people who I think are really good, and I steal everything they do.
Well, who are some people you steal from?
Well, you mentioned the commercial with the guy and the blonde and the dog. The gentleman in those commercials is Tom Park. Mm-hmm. He is a spokesperson that I actually work with in my upstate New York dealerships that I do. And he was there from day one that I got hired. And I just kind of got there and I had no idea what was happening. I'd never done any of these things before. They're not scripted at all. They throw a car at you, they throw a city at you, they throw a price at you, go. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do with my hands. And Tom's very, very, very excellent spokesperson and is just wonderful to work with. And so I would just sit on the lot and watch everything that he did. And I use all of his phrases and he's so clever and like just he's somebody that I've really learned a lot from, not only just from watching but from working with, because he's very generous and very willing to share and to coach. And I think in this industry you have to be open to the people who can coach you. Those are your most valuable resource. So when you have someone who says, "Hey, why don't you try?" You say, "Yes. What can I do to be better?"
Absolutely. That's a predicament I ran into this weekend. You talk about doing live events. I also am a stand-up comedian, and I finally reached the level where I'm emceeing comedy shows.
Yeah.
I finally have gotten to that point that I'm not embarrassing myself. And I haven't
comedy though. It's all embarrassing yourself.
Well,
right?
yeah, I do a pretty.
That's what acting is.
Exactly. I do a pretty good job, but it's at that point of you're like, hey, maybe you should try this, or like, especially the headline, like, hey, when you introduce me, say this, or hey, when you introduce yourself. And like a big problem is I didn't say my name. Because I tell her, hey, my name is Jake Manning. Like, no, I just jumped right into the show, and like both days. So I was like, I'm a complete idiot. But
do you think that's nerves though, or do you
absolutely.
think? Yeah, okay.
Because and also too, I had like a really long script I had to memorize.
Yeah.
And then get into my act. Usually in particular situations like that, you can just kind of come on stage, welcome everybody, you get into your stuff, and then give the announcements.
Right.
But they wanted to give the announcements right at the top, and so it like threw me.
So you're
off.
already distracted.
And then also too, like I've never said my name. Usually I had somebody do that for me, bring me on stage. So this was the first time that I'm the first thing on the stage.
Yeah.
And that's like always weird. And like when you say you do live events, like the idea of wrangling cats, almost in a sense. Like that's
absolutely
that's a different skill as well. Like how did you develop that skill?
I have no idea. Honestly, I would say that it probably goes back to that very first job when I was working in the high schools, because if you can't control a room full of high school students, or if you can control, I should say, a room full of high school students, you can probably control anybody, because that's a volatile room, and not for any malicious reason, just because they're teenagers and their attention is pulled in 10 different directions, and you're trying to do your job, but you have to make it interesting to them. Maybe that's what it is trying to keep people interested in what you're telling them to do while you're telling them to do it.
Yeah, and then you got to push out some information, and then you have to do those little tricks of like, oh, I'm going to segue into now the information part, and we'll segue into the entertainment part.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard skill to explain how to do. Yeah,
it really is. There's like some fine nuances to it. Like the only thing that kept me is because I've performed in front of people probably for the last 13 years now, so I'm not. And usually in spandex underwear. So like me standing on a stage fully clothed, I don't feel quite as nervous.
A little less exposed.
I feel a little less exposed, but there's still that sense of like, I gotta make sure I get through all this.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you're still exposed no matter what. When you're standing in front of an audience, whether you are being yourself or portraying someone else, there's a certain level of exposure that's terrifying. I do think that when you get to play a character, it feels much safer. I think that's probably why I prefer acting to hosting, for example. There's a safety of it's not me.
You can hate this person if you want, but if you,
or you
don't
can react
like me,
however you want to this person, because it's not me.
See, I would still analyze it like, oh, I'm not doing a good enough job, and then still bring it all back to myself. But that's myself. Very self-centered in that sense.
I think I don't know if it's just me. I definitely think that I've got a very, very thick skin, and I think a lot of it comes from the industry that I work in, where you just hear no constantly all the time. It's just rejection constantly, and you have to learn that that's just not personal. It's just they picked somebody else for the job, and you'll get the next one, or the next one, or the next one. Hopefully.
Is that something you learned right away, or is that something that you had to discover? Was there some sort of epiphany like, oh, okay, I just have to deal with this now?
I think by the time that I got to the point where I was working with an agent and was doing television commercials and auditioning for TV shows and stuff like that, I was very well healed in the idea of rejection. And I don't really know if that came from I was auditioning for theater starting when I was probably, I guess I got my first touring role when I was 14 years old. That was in Charlotte. And that I'm sure was not the first audition that I ever went on. So I was definitely auditioning as young as, preteen. So that's, you learn, that's a tough time to be getting rejected. And I think you definitely develop a thick skin. My dad loves to make fun of me in all the worst ways. So I think I developed a really thick skin really early on just because of my father.
Like, how so?
So he's your typical dad who thinks he's hysterical. Full disclosure, he's hysterical. Don't ever let him hear that.
Okay.
But he loves, when my sister and I were young, he loved to just mess with us. Like I had a birthday party. Nope, it wasn't a birthday party. It was a Halloween party when I was in middle school, maybe 12, 13 years old. And it was my first boy-girl party.
Oh, no.
So it was a big deal.
Oh, I can already see the dad's wheels turning.
And
right
he, he's an entertainer. We always cook food, have drinks out, and so I had made a bunch of appetizers for this party thinking, that's what you do. You entertain. And everybody gets there. They're all standing around this table full of appetizers. And my dad marches in with a box of Ziploc bags and plops it on the table. And he says, Caroline made all the food herself, so here are the barf bags. And just drops the mic, leaves. And I'm just like... And that was a pretty typical example of what happened in my childhood with my father.
Just come in.
He loved, making the joke, even if it was at our expense, preferably if it was at our expense. But
like he's some sort of sidekick in an 80s sitcom. I'm just going to get that
kicks
one
the
line.
door down. Yeah.
Just make that one line, and we'll leave with big laughter, and then you guys just push the story along.
Yes. Yeah. And then you guys pick up the pieces. So, and he still, to this day, he does it. But my sister and I have gotten quite good at giving it right back to him. Okay. So
diffusing that.
Yeah. But I do think that helped me with my thick skin, is learning. It's not from a place of negativity. It's just life. It's reality. So
yeah, I mean that my dad would try to do that, but he had an awful sense of humor, so it would never hit.
Yeah.
And then, but then I would just leave it open.
That's almost better, though.
Yeah,
but
but then
that, awkward silence.
But the thing is, I was very quick-witted, like my mother, so I could just tag his joke better than he could.
Yeah.
And then that's how I developed my ability to be a class clown and sit in the back of the room and hit my punchline, and then I get out of there. So it always would blow up in my dad's face every time. So
worth a shot.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, you talking about you're trying to get on these touring companies at a young age and stuff like that,
touring company might be misleading. This was a local, we went to all the high schools tour.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty big deal for a 14-year-old.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a big deal for anybody that age being able to perform in that for many people and stuff like that. So you're getting all these wonderfuls and opportunities here in Charlotte, and you're just picking up stuff while you can and stuff like that, and scraping together a living in your 20s. Yeah. I mean, you're happy, are you happy? Like you said, you never thought about a career arc, but the idea of I really need to move out of here, or were you no, I want to try to make a living here? What was there a definitive line no, I like what I'm doing here, I'm going to keep where I'm at, or where you always had the idea of loftier goals in the back of your head?
I definitely, when I was younger, I had this idea that I needed to go to LA or New York to make it, quote unquote, as an actor. And I think a lot of people have that kind of idea. I think a lot of people have the idea that they have to leave where they're from to make it, period, in any sense. And right after, I was in my I need to go to LA phase when I was 19, 20. So right after that, I got the children's theater job and loved it and didn't see any reason to go. And then from there, got the radio gig. And then from there, got the NBA gig. Now with the NBA gig, I actually ended up going to New York and working for the Knicks for part of a season. And so that was a reason to go to New York. And I thought, okay, well, now I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to do it in New York. Mm-hmm. And the Knicks actually eliminated my position after a couple, part of a season. It was just one of those things. And I saw it coming because the fans just felt like I was in the way. And
what were you doing for the Knicks?
So the same thing that I did for the Bobcats. I was the in-arena host. So basically, it would be hey guys, here's what's on sale in the team store today, or various sponsor-provided content that we would do. Instead of the announcer saying it, we would have someone on camera to do it. But we're in the stands and we're mingling with the fans, and I got a lot more pushback from the fans in New York. They just didn't appreciate it. And
they're like,
yeah, they're
you're
like,
not
what?
from here.
Yeah. Well, I think it was more that it was like, we just came to watch the game, like we don't want all this stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas in Charlotte, it was a more cohesive entertainment package, which may have had something to do with the basketball that was being played at the time. Mm-hmm. But it even now with an incredible team that's been going to the playoffs, the entertainment package here in Charlotte, I think, is one of the best in the league, and I think that's why the fans are so receptive to it, because they do such a good job. And it was very new in New York; they had never done it before. And so they brought me in, and 3 months later, they were like, yeah, this is not working, so we're not going to do it anymore. So then I'm in New York, and it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll start auditioning for things. And I did, and very quickly got a job as an MC for a dance competition that tours the country, which I actually still work for as a sound engineer. And when that season ended, I kind of felt like this is something I can do from Charlotte. I love Charlotte. Charlotte's always been home. And I just felt like I had better opportunities. This is going to sound insane. I felt like I had better opportunities as an actor in Charlotte because of all the work that I had already done, all the connections that I had already made. Whereas in New York, I was nobody. I knew nobody. And just was going to have to start over from the bottom, and didn't really have a support group there. And I just felt like Charlotte was where I wanted to be.
Yeah. I mean, you've collected now at least a resume of working outside of Charlotte. You can now come here, and now now the doors open up for you. You're not like a nobody in Charlotte. You're a somebody coming in with like a resume.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me for sure.
Yeah.
But you talk about you emceed for like this touring dance company. Like, what were the responsibilities of that? Like, just like
it's kind of a weird job because it's a tour and it operates a skeleton crew. So the MC they MC all of the award ceremonies, which is almost part auctioneering, part MCing, because you're just reading off scores and adjudications as fast as you can. And then you're giving out these awards and you're interviewing the kids. But then also, because it's such a small crew, you're responsible for breaking the person who runs the soundboard, which, because I had a radio background, was a piece of cake for me.
You plug in stuff into an audio board.
And it's almost sound designing on the fly, because you have a dancer goes on stage and you press play on their music, and then you've got until the music ends to come up with a song that matches tone or concept of what they're dancing to as their transition music. And then they go off stage, you announce the next dancer, and then you start all over, which I found really interesting. It was my favorite part of emceeing, ironically. And then we have a console operator, so we have a live video feed. So you're switching the video feed from what's on stage to a video in between. And then you're also doing the same. We have music videos, so the same kind of thing as the sound person does, where you're picking a video that matches what was on stage, and then recording every entry. So I would break those two positions while they ate lunch or dinner or whatever the case. These are long, like 17-hour days. And so it was just, and you're touring. So you're never, we would leave on a Wednesday or Thursday and get back on a Monday. So you're never home.
What was a loop for you? Like what towns were you hitting? Like what distances in between?
Oh man, we do a lot of Eastern Seaboard, a decent amount of East Coast. At this point, not at that point, but at this point, we're doing some West Coast and some Southwest, Midwest. A lot of Midwest. Minnesota is one of the places we go to every year. Minneapolis, St. Paul. They have incredible dance. I mean, Minneapolis is one of my favorite cities that we go to. San Jose, California would be the other. I just got back from Orlando on Monday, which was our last regional tour of this season. So just all over the place.
Did you enjoy the travel?
I do. You don't really get to see as much of these places as I would like to. I would like to be able to spend a little bit more time visiting these places that I've never been. But you can't beat all those frequent flyer miles. That's for sure. And I like to travel a lot. So commuting by plane doesn't really concern me. I do that for my car commercial shoots every month, so I'm used to just this is my commute to work. Is I get on a plane and I go somewhere.
Yeah, I've always found that interesting as well. That's why when we were emailing you when we were discussing how long this is going to take, and you're like, oh, just a air flight to Atlanta. That's all this is. Exactly.
That's what's comfortable for me.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny when you say that you going to these like all these locations and you never get any time. You talk about these long 17-hour days, like it's very similar when I do a wrestling show. I also work for an online wrestling merchandise company where they rent out the ring. So I'm usually driving the ring. I'm the first person in the building, last person to leave. Yeah. And, now granted, going to Beckley, West Virginia is not as exotic.
And we have the same thing. Like we go places where I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. But then we were just in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
And it was like a very large convention, like a Comic-Con level size event.
Oh, wow.
And we're in Dallas, downtown Dallas, and I had to.
You want to experience it.
I had to make a point. I had to get up early to go. It's like, okay, I'm just running around the corner from the JFK stuff and all that other, and we're staying at Reunion, the Reunion Tower, and the tower that everybody goes up in, and I just didn't have time to go upstairs into this. Yeah. Thing. It's like in the same hotel. All I have to do is walk downstairs and go up an elevator, but I don't have time to go do it. It's like you get frustrated. Right. A lot of times, you're missing out on stuff. That's kind of what the joy of it is.
Well, and you kind of sometimes you get into a point where you feel like you're missing out on things at home too because you're never there. With our season, we have a continual 5-month season where it's just every single weekend, and so for basically 5 months out of the year, when I'm on tour full time, which has only been 4 years in the last 7, you're just gone. Even though we're not a bus and truck tour, you are not home enough that it's, and especially with me doing the car commercials in between these weekends, it can feel like I'm never home. I have a cat, which is a fairly low maintenance pet. Mm-hmm. And he is living with my parents right now because I'm not home enough to take care of my cat. So that's how bad it is. But I love it. It's a great gig.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And like I said, those travels, it's just, it gets on you. And it's funny, when you start stacking up in different jobs and stuff like that, if you just did the touring company, it'd probably be fine.
Right. And then 5 months out of the year, it'd be done.
And then, of course, your friend's like, oh, you were in Orlando? And that's the funny, it's weird when you work in production, you work in a job and you travel for your job. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the only thing you want to do is just get to the hotel room and not have to deal with anything.
Yes, or sleep.
But then when you talk to normal people, as I say, they're like, oh, you were in Orlando. I bet you had a lot of fun. I'm like, no, I didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
I didn't do any of that.
I wasn't there for vacation.
No. Well, did you go out and do anything? No, I did nothing.
Yeah.
After I got done working, I did nothing.
Yep. That's pretty common for us.
Absolutely. But, all right. So you're busy doing this traveling and doing this touring and stuff like that. So, is there anything else that you actively work on right now that fills up your plate? You seem like a person that if you're not doing a lot of stuff, you need to fill up your plate.
Yeah. I probably have 1 month of the year where I just don't have anything going on, and it's by that point I usually desperately need that.
Do you make a point to have that month, or does it work out that way schedule?
Yeah, it usually works out that way schedule wise, but once that month shapes up to be whatever month it's going to be, where I'm looking at my calendar and it's like, okay, this month doesn't have a lot, then I will just cross it out, say, nope, not doing anything this month unless something really worthwhile comes up, which half the time does, and then I'll do it. But I am working on producing a show here this fall, which we haven't announced yet. We're not 100% certain. We don't have the rights, so I'm not going to say that yet. But then I'm also producing a show, which we did here last fall in Charlotte, called Grounded. We're going to do that in Florida, in Naples, Florida, which I haven't actually technically announced that yet either. So that'll be... This is the time to announce it, though. So
okay, this would be about that time.
Yeah,
but you talk about so on top of the touring company, on top of the car commercials, now running productions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
let's talk about booking. So you got to book a building or
find a venue. You've got to get the rights to the show. You hire director, technicians.
And they have rehearsals and everything else.
And all of the stuff. And the first show I produced, actually, was I was in it, which was not my intention. I prefer not to be in the shows that I'm producing, if for no other reason, because it's just a lot of work all at once. But it was a show it was the show Grounded that we're doing in Florida that just was a great opportunity, and a phenomenally talented actor, director, Glynis O'Donoghue, who I respect tremendously and I'm a huge fan of, brought me the script and said, hey, I really want you to do this role. And I read it with Glynis and my producing partner, Kim Ballard, and we all just kind of were like, this is amazing. We have to do this. And so despite not really wanting to be in a show that I was producing, I didn't see any alternative to not doing this. So,
but do you feel like you run into that? They're like, well, somebody has to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always think about like Sylvester Stallone. He talked about he had to direct. The director fell out of Rocky 2, so he ended up directing, and that's how he ended up doing that. And then like along the way, like in Rocky 1, like we didn't have a director of photography, so I ended up doing that, and I ended up doing this. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm very much in the same way. Like at a wrestling show, it's like. The booker didn't do this, so somebody's got to give everybody finishes. Nobody made ref assignments. I've wrestled on a show. I've seated people at that same show. I've filmed the show. I've done commentary on the show. Ended up doing editing on it. Give several people their finishes. Make ref assignments.
Yeah.
And then come up with some sort of story that leads them to come back in again. So like, it always seems like you have to be. There's a certain type of person that sees holes before everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, do you identify yourself as that type of person?
Definitely. I definitely think that I'm a problem solver. That's one of my, I think, best skill sets. And that's, I think, what makes me a good producer. And I think that's what makes me a good director. I wouldn't want to direct a show that I was in. I think that's much more challenging because the director is an artistic role and an actor is an artistic role. The producer is not an artistic role. I think it's important that the producer understand the artistic side. And if the producer is an artistic person, then that's definitely a bonus. But the producer's job is not to create the art. It's to facilitate the production of the art, whether it's through financing it or making arrangements. And, it's the producer's job is not as artistic and glamorous as it sounds to a lot of people. People always ask me, like, what does a producer do? And it's like, they have to do all of the work. Or they have to put up all the money. Yeah. And sometimes they do both, like with small production companies. So
obviously, so they got to deal with I always relate it to like you have to deal with building stuff. You have to deal with seating, what the people are going to be doing other than the actual production of the thing.
Yes.
Is the way I always seem to understand
it. But also making sure that the elements of the production are going to come together, the lighting and the sound, and do we have all of the people that we need? Do we have all the resources that we need? And then marketing these days is so incredibly important. So I'm terrible at social media. I love Twitter. I use Twitter constantly, but I'm basically just a idiot on Twitter. So it's not something that I'm really good at using as a means to an end. And then I hate Facebook. I don't use it at all. So it's one of those things where like it's that necessary evil of something that I have to do.
It's a part-time job.
Yeah, it is. And it's necessary for small businesses.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I try to be good at it, but I don't think I'm very good at that part of my job.
I know it's like I have to, it feels like, because I have 4 other shows that I produce. Not every week, but like every other week. Every once in a while, every other week, I will have 4 shows that I'm putting out. Maybe an iTunes podcast or SoundCloud, YouTube, Vimeo, YouTube, whatever. Like I've got 4 shows that I produce every week, and I'm trying to put eyes on all of that. On top of put eyes on me as a wrestler, put eyes on me on top of a stand-up comedian as well, and everything else. And it really it's frustrating that you have to put it in so many different places, and you'll get a couple likes over here, but you get a couple hearts over here, and it's like if I just put all this together, then I've got something. But it's like you have to put it in whatever format is cool, and then you're going down the rabbit hole of like, should I be doing a Periscope account? Should I be worrying about this? Is this where all the kids are at? Because I was very late to Instagram.
What are the cool kids doing now?
Yeah. It's like I was very late to Instagram. I started an Instagram account like a year ago.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it's almost out of force. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I drew a hard line. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. But then I'm like, I have to do this because all
I
the
guess
people
I should.
are.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part. Like it's like, ugh. And then you're like so far behind, and then you're catching up.
Yeah. And I don't like following rules, so I tend not to, like Instagram tends to be like, this is where you're supposed to post pictures of yourself. And I never I'm like, I'm on camera for a living. I don't want to see pictures of myself online.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not doing that, but I feel like that's not how I'm supposed to be using my Instagram. So yeah, it is what it is.
Exactly. Like you're supposed to have some sort of content that people would want to come and follow, as opposed to
and I put pictures of my cat on there.
Yeah, and you got to find that thing that's clever, and then it's like, oh my gosh, if there's a misspelling or a wrong punctuation, it's the end of the world. And then it gets retweeted, or then you're like, oh, did I not say the right word properly? Oh, that's why it's not getting retweeted, or that's why it's not this. I'm like, ugh,
Yeah.
it's frustrating. I hate it. Like I really do. But yeah, I know how that feels. It's like, no, I'm not going to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to get an Instagram account. No, I got to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a necessity,
It's another thing we have to worry about.
Just keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, it really is. And you want to find that thing to get in before everybody else. Because like there's those people that got in Twitter early, and then all of a sudden they got all the followers, and then they got the platform to let people know. But then, sometimes, it's whatever. It's rabbit hole. We've discussed.
Yes.
But now, as somebody that like I said, you're producing shows and stuff like that, and you're acting in them. Like, how do you organize all of that with everything that you do? Like typical day. I know it's going to be different every day. How do you? Balance it?
It's just a project basis. I have a list of things that I need to do, and I know which ones are more urgent than others.
Are you a list person?
Yes, absolutely. I would never be able to do the things that I do if I didn't just write every single thing down. So yeah, I definitely make a lot of to-do lists, and nothing is more satisfying than checking something off that to-do list. Yeah.
I have a red Sharpie.
So, yeah.
that I love. Like I have a sheet of paper of projects that are at my job, and I like writing them down. Sometimes I'll forget to write something down, and
after you've done it, you write it down just so you can
I'll write it down.
out.
Yes. Oh God, I feel so good. That feels so good. I just seeing more red on this piece of paper as opposed to black.
It's a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, what are some things that you do to try to stay organized? Just like I have in the other room, I have a large dry erase calendar.
Yeah.
And I've got actually things color coded and very much detailed. And of course, I have my phone and stuff like that. But what are some things that you use, tools that we have available to us, maybe even electronically?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely almost exclusively electronic at this point, just because I travel so much. So I need to be able to not only carry things with me, but have them sync across. It's better if I can take something with me that I don't have to go and then add it to something that I have elsewhere. So I can just have one list. So I use Google Docs. I use my iPhone, and I have a MacBook Air, which is great. I love my MacBook Air. This is going to sound like a commercial, because I can travel with it. It's incredibly lightweight, but it's also really powerful. I can do it for my sound design. I can keep everything on there in one place, and it syncs with my phone. So if I don't take it somewhere, it's fine.
All right there, yeah.
It goes as soon as they're connected to the cloud. We're good. So.
Yeah, that was something I found out with like Google Calendar, and
Yes.
It just showed up on my phone.
Yep.
And I was like,
Google Docs has been great also. I do some writing on the side because I don't do enough already. So
well, what are you writing? Like, or are you talking about plays?
I have not. When I was younger, I did some playwriting. My mom still sends me things about playwriting every once in a while. I think she wants me to get back into it. But I do some small articles, restaurant reviews, travel blogging, stuff like that. Just it's more of a hobby right now.
Yeah, because you, on top of everything else, that's what you need is something else
as a hobby. Yeah, because I don't spend enough time doing hobbies. I think part of it is I secretly, it's not remotely secret. I totally covet Anthony Bourdain's life, And
Who
I
doesn't?
think there's a part of me that's like, all right, you need to be writing your experiences and documenting this so that someday you can do your own travel show, because that would kind of combine all of my favorite things into one. So,
But it's always funny because you always hear those stories of like, oh, I just did this for fun on top of all the other stuff that I didn't, I liked, but wasn't as much as fun as this.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm running into that right now. Like one of my shows that not that I don't enjoy talking to different people on Stranger in a Southern Land, but I do a show where I watch bad wrestling shows and I just sit down with a non-wrestling fan and
sounds awesome.
And we discuss the show,
Yeah.
and it's just a goof. It's just something I came up with, but it's been picking up steams of subscribers. And I'm like, why didn't I do this? Because this was far more fun than anything else that I do.
Yeah.
Like it's just as fun as anything else that I do of all the things that I do. And it's like, why didn't I just put energy into this? And you always hear those stupid stories of like, oh, I just did this for fun.
I just did it to do it. Yeah.
Like that I forget his name. I think it's Harley, whatever, the guy of Epic Mealtime. Like he was like a substitute teacher, and he just got drunk one night, and he goes, "What if I made this hamburger pizza and I filmed it and put it online?"
Yeah.
And then he just started coming up with just these monster recipes, like of just insane stuff, like a fried chicken burrito, like. And he just made it, and all of a sudden now he sells sponsorships and he makes money, and he's like internet celebrity and makes money off of just doing that.
Yeah.
So like you just got to find those things that I guess you like. I guess somehow the passion rise above.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is to do things that make you happy, and even if you're not making money off of them, to continue to do the things that you enjoy and that make you happy, because that's going to be what is the most important thing in your life. Whether you end up making money off of it or not, it's always going to be important in your life.
Okay. Well, we're getting close to the end, and we're actually, as far as conversationally, we're getting to a point that I always try and get to. At least, it's kind of the little trick. I get you comfortable enough to answer this question,
okay?
Which is the main point of this whole podcast.
All right.
But if I just ask this question right out the gate,
it's just weird. It's awkward.
It's just weird, and then I've got a 10-minute podcast at the end of the day. So, basically, I started this is because I want to get in contact with people. Stranger in a Southern Land. I feel like I've traveled up and down the East Coast, but I don't know my general region, community, and people that are around doing interesting and cool stuff. But I also want to talk about the topic of success.
Okay.
As a young man in my 30s, I'm having a hard time dealing on what it is. Like, how is it defined? How do you feel like it's something that's attainable? Do you have a clear goal of what it is? Do you see it in your future? Would you think you'll be happy when you achieve it? So basically, I just want your thoughts and reactions when I talk about the topic of success.
I think success is different for everybody. I think you have to individually come up with your own definition of success. For some people, success is money. For some people, success is getting married and having a family. For some people, success is having the career that they thought that they would always have. For me personally, success has been finding a way to continue to do the things that I love while still being able to make a living that, while I certainly don't make a ton of money, I make enough to pay my bills, and then I make enough to do things like travel around the world, which is something that I really, really enjoy doing. And so I feel like I've definitely obtained success because I'm able to do the job that I want to do. I'm able to create job opportunities for other people in my area to do similar work. And I'm also able to have a really good life-work balance in that while I may spend 5 months of the year working an insane number of hours a week and never being home, then I'll have 2 months later this year where I'll get to go travel Scandinavia or, just do something that I want to do just for me.
Okay. So when you say... So you feel like a success right now?
I do. Yeah, I definitely do.
For sure?
Yeah. For me, success isn't about, being famous or being respected or being, having a lot of money. I do feel like I'm respected in my field, and I feel like I work very hard to be respected and earn that respect. And that I would say of those three things is definitely something that does matter to me. I don't think I would be as happy and feel successful if I didn't feel like I was respected by my peers in the community. But for me, having money is a completely subjective thing. You know, I think having experiences are what make you rich. And as long as you can pay your bills and aren't stressing out every month about being able to do that, then you don't need any more money than that, you know? So, and then fame is something I honestly would prefer never, ever, ever to have. It seems like more of a burden than a blessing to me. So I still like to be able to go to the grocery store in my pajamas every once in a while. Yeah. So,
and occasionally get recognized in the street and the hello. And
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Every once in a while. Yeah, that's always nice.
Fame can be very invasive. So I'm a very, very private person. I'm a natural introvert, and I think my experience as an actor has really helped me to pretend not to be. But I definitely get to the point where I don't want to be around people anymore. And so to have, especially with social media being very accessible to people, having people that I don't know approaching me and asking me these personal questions, I'm kind of like, why would you ever just ask a complete stranger this? Because that's what I am. I'm a complete stranger. You see me on television, so you think you know who I am, but we don't know each other. And it's, you know, it's just, it feels very invasive sometimes. So I don't think I would want to be any more famous than whatever fame I've already achieved.
You've topped out that limit.
Yeah, right, I'm good. You
can take a little more money. Everybody can always take a little more.
I wouldn't mind more money. I would certainly not say no to more money, but
a few less hours of work, and that's where the balance.
I don't know that that's going to happen.
Yeah, if you could just switch those just a little bit, then we're in that right range.
Yes.
You know. So I'm nice to know that you have that kind of clearly defined in your head, and you're at that point. So
yeah.
It's kind of always.
It's not something where I'm not going to continue to have to work to stay at that point. There's absolutely no coasting in this industry. You get where you are by fighting tooth and nail to have it, and you keep it by fighting tooth and nail to have it. So, and it's all, I'm going to have to continue to find these opportunities and to take them and see where they go. And things will always change. And I don't know how they will change or when they will change, but I know that they will change. And I think continuing to be successful will be a matter of being able to take those opportunities as they come and make the most of them. And
Well, it's all a hustle. Are you addicted to the hustle?
I don't know that I would say that's a tough question to answer, because I don't know that I would be able to do a job that didn't involve some aspect of the hustle.
Because I feel like if I got like a regular job or like I stopped doing what I was doing, like if I like retired today, like I'd end up like those police officers that retire after like 20 years and they have a heart attack 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
Because they're not stressing themselves out the entire time.
I think I could live without stress. Although I don't have a very stressful job. It can be stressful at times. And when it is stressful, it can be unbelievably stressful. But in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't say it's very stressful. But there is definitely a very high level of just energy. It's go, 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 go. And while I certainly wouldn't mind being able to take breaks from it at times, I think that's the introvert in me, is like, I just need to like read a book for a month.
But you can plug yourself out.
Yeah, I think because I'm able to step away occasionally, it helps me a lot. I think if I were faced with the prospect of stepping away permanently, that I would find myself very bored very quickly. Mm-hmm. I think at first it would sound like a great idea, and then it would be like, oh no, this is terrible.
It's the restlessness.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
your brain never stops. You know, I'm one of these people that my brain never, ever, ever quits. I mean, I'll get in bed at, if I have to be up early, I'll get in bed at 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, well, this is great. I've done nothing but think about things that I have no reason to think about.
Yeah, because you almost have to like, I've had those moments in bed where you have to like, you can't fix any of this right now.
Yeah.
You have to come to that conclusion that I can't fix any of this right now.
And sometimes it's not even problem solving. It's like, what if I did this? What if I read this story and that would make a great play. And maybe I should turn that into a play. I should write that. No, I can't write that. Maybe it already, it's just just constant.
Yeah. And then like those nights you do have off of, it's like, oh, I can take a break. And then you're like,
yeah.
And you're just constantly moving.
Yeah. Those are the nights that I usually take a sleeping pill or two. So
yeah.
that's the only way to turn my brain off and actually sleep for an entire 8 hours. So.
Okay, because that's how I got into like a really bad drinking habit. Is I just like I have to.
The only way to sleep is if I I understand that. I totally understand
exactly.
that.
And I went on that train for about 2.5 years, and I got off and went cold turkey for 20 days.
Yeah.
And but then all of a sudden it's like that situation of like you feel too much, you know too much, and then your brain is always active.
Yeah.
And then trying to deal with that.
Yeah. For me, the best solution has been just to take a sleeping pill and, go ahead and carve out like 12 hours. I'll take it early, really early. And just put on some dumb TV on Netflix and be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's got their way.
Yes.
I'm trying to only operate on 6 hours of sleep because I feel like I can get more done. That's
I
my
would say
goal.
6 hours is my ideal.
Yeah.
More than that, I tend to feel a little groggy. Less than that, I definitely don't function as well. Yeah. But with this tour, I'm frequently on 2 or 3 hours of sleep for multiple days in a row with the tour. And so I'm at the point now where that since regionals are done, I have like 2 weeks before we go out on finals. And I'm just going to spend every night that I can sleeping as many hours as I can.
Yeah, like the big problem is I have to work out all the time, so my body's always growing, so I need to add that extra 2 hours to
and
it.
It's probably, I imagine, like if you work out later in the day, it's harder to fall asleep, and
Yeah, I take pre-workouts just because I do it every day. I'm definitely not excited to do about it at all. So but it's weird how you have to. It's like your brain. It's like I don't know if you saw not this last X-Men movie, but the one before. Or Professor Xavier talked about, like he was taking some drug that blocked out his mutant powers of listening to everybody's thoughts and beings and stuff like that. And it feels like sometimes those type of people that's like, you take something and you just want to block it out because I don't want to feel everybody's everything.
Right.
I don't want to think about this. I don't want to thought process that you just kind of like dumb yourself down.
Yeah.
And then when you open yourself up to it, it's almost too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
That was a hearty yes.
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
I understand.
I understand that pain. Well, anyways, I don't want to take up too much of your time because you're obviously a busy person, but you have a live microphone in front of you to tell people about all the projects, the things to do, how they can connect with you, invade your privacy on social media, or however they can get up with you for any of your skills or talents that you can provide to the world. So.
What I would say is visit froshowproductions.com. That is the website for my production company. We're still new. We're getting started, so it's a work in progress. If you would like to follow me on social media, my Twitter handle is @thefroshow. It is not for the faint of heart. I say whatever I feel like saying on Twitter, so you've been warned. Those are probably the best ways to find me.
Or invade your privacy.
Or most people don't. Most people are not invasive, but there's some. You know who you are.
Oh, they're out there.
Yeah,
I've got my own share as well.
Yeah. So.
Well, anyways, Caroline Renfro, thank you very much for coming over to the home
very
studio
much.
today, and this
Thanks
has been
for
a lovely
having me.
talk.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thanks.